Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining our School on Wheels workshop tonight, Group Tutoring Best Practices. My name is Amanda Carr and I'm the Engagement Specialist at School on Wheels. And I have with me Kyle McDonough, our Region 3 Coordinator, and Monica Carrillo, a tutor who works in one of Kyle's group locations. Just a few notes before we get started. For purposes of sound quality, all participants are currently muted. You have the ability to ask a question at any time using the question pane. So simply type in a question and press send. We'll choose the order of questions and read them out loud. You may also wish to use headphones for better sound. Now, Kyle and Monica, I'm going to turn it over to you. We'll get started with some introductions.
All right, guys. So my name is Kyle McDonough. I am the Regional Coordinator for Region 3, the West Side. Hold on, I'm trying to switch the slide here. There we go. So yeah, I mostly help facilitate with my group sites and check in with them. I have about 4 of them right now. I've been with School on Wheels for about 4 years now. I've done one-on-one tutoring. I've done a little online tutoring. I've helped out at the Skid Row Learning Center, and now I'm a regional coordinator helping a little with some group tutoring. So yeah, I'd like to introduce one of my awesome tutors at one of my sites.
So embarrassing. Hi, I'm Monica Carrillo. I'm a group tutor at Bible Tabernacle in West LA. I've only been volunteering with School on Wheels for a little over a year or just around a year sometime. And so yeah, hopefully we can help you guys with some problems you guys may be having.
And as I said before, my name's Amanda. I'm the Engagement Specialist here at School on Wheels. I'll probably be chiming in a little bit as we go throughout the presentation. I've been at School on Wheels for a year, but I've been working with volunteers for over 3 years now. And I have my own student. I tutor one-on-one, but sometimes I also drop in to our group tutoring locations here at Skid Row. So I do have some group tutoring experience. Great, so at any point, if you have a question, just type it right into that question pane and we're gonna move on now.
Cool.
Cool, so for some background, like I said before, I'm at Bible Tabernacle, which is in West LA. We have a group of about 10 kids, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes less, and a majority of them are in 4th and 5th grade. Sometimes, or there are some of them that are older and younger, but the average is 4th and 5th grade. So these are some common problems I've noticed working with 4th and 5th graders in my little over a year time at the location. The first one is students usually have a tendency to get frustrated with their homework, or they get frustrated with the fact that they don't understand their homework, or they just plain don't understand their homework. Anything along those lines. Either way, they all get frustrated at some point. The second problem I noticed is that usually at our location, if a kid comes in and they don't have any homework, we like to give them schoolwork to do, usually a math or a reading worksheet. And no one likes that. No kid likes that. No kid likes to have work when they just did homework. And the third problem is just the trouble interacting with tutors, or just having a problem with authority figures, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Cool. So I'll go over a few, common problems I've noticed too at some of the sites. Definitely students getting out of seats is a big one. They'll constantly be asking to get up. Can I sharpen a pencil? They'll walk up to you to ask a question, and maybe if you're walking around going to different tables or something, basically kind of trying to take advantage a little bit, trying to get up, trying to move around a lot. Seeing how much they can get away with, so that happens a lot. Sometimes, the students will just flat out kind of refuse to do work, especially maybe when you're just first starting with them or they haven't gotten to know you yet. They might be just really not responsive. They'll put their, head in their hands, kind of lay on the desk. They're not doing it. They're just kind of refusing to do any work, and that can definitely be difficult. Definitely distracting other students is a big one. You'll get a few kind of, maybe some chatty students that are distracting some other kids. Maybe some kids are trying to work and they have one kid that's really rambunctious and, talking to another kid, or continually will distract a particular kid. Maybe if they're in the same, class, or if they're friends, sometimes that can happen a lot. Sometimes they'll argue too, and then want to tell on each other about what's going on, like making a lot of noise. That happens quite a bit. I definitely get the I don't have homework excuse a lot at a lot of different group sites. Like, like they'll walk in like, I don't have any homework. Can I just play a game? I don't want to do anything today. So that's an excuse I get a lot. So they want to not do anything that day just because they didn't bring anything to do. We never want that to be an excuse. New students can definitely be an issue. If the student is new to the site or to the group tutoring there, maybe if you're working at an emergency shelter or something like that, where the kids change every 30 days or so, it can, when they get there, they might not know the rules, and that definitely happens here at the Skid Row Learning Center too. Here that we sit them down and go over the rules and expectations and things like that. But it can definitely be a tough transition for a kid when they don't know any of the rules and just expecting them to know it right off the bat. So new students can be, a little tough to work with at the start. Yeah, and then the last one I put on here is, if the student just thinks their homework is difficult to figure out. They think it's too difficult. They don't want to work on it. They're really intimidated by it. And it kind of gets them to shut down, and that can be a difficult problem too, because you're there to help them. You really want to do your best to help them figure out their homework, but it's too difficult for them. They kind of shut down. That can be a common thing that occurs.
Very common. So common. It's my first example. My first example is I had a fifth grade boy who would just immediately shut down whenever his homework got too difficult, or he would shut down for many reasons. So either his homework was too difficult, or he got some problems wrong in his homework and we gave it back to him to correct it, and he'd just be like, but I just did this, and he'd just be really sad and upset, and he'd just get visibly and physically upset. He would put his head in his hands and just sit on the table, not like sit on the table, but just lay his head down on the table and just flat out refuse to continue his work. And then when we asked him about it, he would just kind of mumble. You couldn't really get a clear answer out of him. And yeah, so that was his problem. And then I had a fourth grader who would prefer one subject over another. I mentioned earlier that when they come in without any homework or any kind of schoolwork at all, we usually give them something to do. Yeah, sorry. And so we usually, sometimes I'll give them a chance to choose either math or reading, and sometimes, they'll choose always the math or always choose reading. Whatever they're not good at, they'll have a tendency to avoid. And my last example is a fourth grader who would just basically freeze whenever anyone tried to help her. She was just very different, but I'll elaborate on all of it. So with the first kid, what I did with him, the fifth grader who shut down whenever his homework got difficult, I just observed him for a little bit, and I got to know his personality, and I realized that his favorite part of homework club was to play on the computers after. He would try sometimes to do his homework at the computer station, just to claim his spot because we have limited computers at our location. But yeah, so he would try to do that. So I made him a deal basically where I sat him down and I told him that, shutting down isn't really the answer when you encounter a problem, and this is just homework, what about other aspects in life? So I made him a deal where if he would willingly go through his homework, if he didn't get upset at all, didn't have any kind of attitude, I would bring my iPad in and I would download whatever kind of game that he wanted to play, because at the computers in at our center, they're usually educational games. So I was like, I'll download like Smashy Road or whatever it is that you play. And that worked pretty well. I mean, it's a slow process. Sometimes he'll kind of relapse, but he's doing really well in vocalizing exactly what it is he's upset about and what is making him just kind of shut down, and he's getting better at talking through his feelings. And
I have a question. Would the other students see him using the iPad and want to use it themselves? Would that cause any friction at all?
I thought it would. I was actually kind of scared of that. But I would just kind of make it as though he were in charge of the iPad. So if he were still working on his work and someone else was done and they wanted to use the iPad because they saw that he was using it, I'd be like, hey, is it okay if this other person uses it? You know, they're done. It would be a really nice thing to do for them. And he'd be like, yeah, that's fine, but I want it when I'm done. And I was like, that's fair. Like, you guys can take turns with it. So, yeah. Okay. And then for my second example, for the fourth grader who preferred one subject over another, this is actually an ongoing thing. So he prefers math, or he prefers math over reading. And for the last 2 weeks, he's, preferred math over reading. And so I asked him, why we have to do reading next week? You can't just always do math. And he was like reading is boring. And I thought about it from his point of view, and it kind of made sense because this kid is really rambunctious. He loves jumping around. He loves anything to do with action. He loves pushing people. He loves pushing things. He loves really just physical activities. So I can understand, reading where you have to sit by yourself and, be quiet for a long time and just focus on a book. I can understand why that would be really boring to him. So my plan is, and hopefully this works, I'm going to go to a local library and check out some books that are really adventurous, like Captain Underpants or like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Magic Tree House, things like that. And I want to do a chapter with him a week, and my goal is that hopefully he's so in love with Captain Underpants that he just can't wait for another week to get another chapter done. So hopefully he'll maybe take initiative and maybe check the book out from his own library or something. That's just the dream. But for now, I think we'll just start with a chapter a week and see where that goes. And then for my last example, for the fourth grader who would freeze whenever a tutor would help, to this day, I still don't know why she would do that. But she would just completely shut down and be completely unresponsive to any kind of attempt to help her. And I just realized that it always took someone else to come in and have to kind of tap out the first tutor who offered to help her. And for some, we needed a good cop basically to the first tutor who she automatically deemed as a bad cop. And, sometimes it took more than 2 tutors. Sometimes it took 3. But we would just always pay attention to her and her needs, and we would just just realize if one of us was having, if one was getting extremely frustrated with her, someone would tap that tutor out. And so just kind of circle through.
So you're talking about having tutors support each other. That's really basically important. If you have the amount of, if you have multiple tutors at your group tutoring location, that can be a really great strategy.
Yeah, and if you're not too busy, if you see someone struggling, please go help them. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot where, a tutor might be working with a kid and they're not being really responsive, and or maybe the tutor might have trouble, and I'll get into this later too, but might have trouble with the subject matter, things like that. And they might feel a little uncomfortable asking another tutor to jump in, but if there are other tutors there, you maybe switch out, or hey, I'm really having trouble with this kid, maybe just try and switch. And that can also be really helpful. And I loved what you said about, getting a books for them and using that as a reward and giving them lots of books as an option, maybe some adventure books too. And I love what Monica said about, not breaking it into smaller goals, let's just read this paragraph. You don't have to make it really intimidating, where you need to read all these pages by the end. Let's just work on this paragraph together. I think breaking off those small chunks can make those subjects that a kid is really kind of afraid of or nervous about a lot less intimidating. Yeah. So those smaller chunks are really helpful, I think. So yes, I will go into some examples I have. So, a lot of my sites, there, might only be a few tutors and lots of students. So that can be really hard to help with schoolwork and also do that classroom management. A lot of times our tutors, we're not always, we're not all teachers. So it's really hard, it's hard for me to learn too. And I still, try to get better at it about, how to control the room with lots of kids in it, and, what are some things about doing that. So when I first started, it was really, kind of intimidating, like all that classroom management stuff, where there were only a couple where I couldn't, match all the tutors one-on-one, where it was just too many kids and not enough tutors. So one of the things, you can try and do is, and we'll go into this a little later too, is just creating structure. Structure is really helpful, assigning seats, things like that. Separating kids by grade level, assigning tutors to different tables, it helps a lot. I had one of my other group sites, I had 2 students, they would just constantly distract each other. They'd just be a constant distraction. They would always talk. They were in middle school. And it was really hard to get them. We were only there for an hour, and we had to end right at the hour because the place kind of kicked us out right at the end of the hour. So, it was really, that time that we'd waste, with talking and distracting was, and we would end up not getting a lot done for those first month or so. So, what we did was I had a meeting with, the students' parents. We talked about it. We just set up expectations, starting to separate the kids was really helpful. So yeah, I think that separation, and then maybe if you need to, kind of getting the parents involved if you're able is good too. Yeah, so another example would be a student who just kept showing up every time with nothing to do. So he'd come every time, he just want to play games, he didn't have anything to do, and I think it's really important in those situations to always have something for them to do. You're going to come, and if you're going to come and you're going to, work on a worksheet, we're going to figure out something to do. We're going to, read a book for 20 minutes. We're going to do something here, for this hour that's, educational. And we just set up those expectations right off the bat, where if the student tries to come in and wants it to be kind of a playtime, that's not really going to fly. Cool.
Yeah. So I think overall, for me at least, just the best practices or solutions with any kind of problem you face, it just takes time. You have to really get to know your kids, not even just on a personal level, about their family. You just get to know the kids' personality in general. These are disadvantaged kids, but they don't act like they're disadvantaged kids. They love playing. They don't like showers. They love mac and cheese. They don't like doing homework. I think it just takes a little bit of time to, especially since, as Kyle said, you only have an hour a week to, get to know these kids. So it just takes time, and just try to figure out where the kid is coming from, and just adjust accordingly, I would say.
For sure. I think that, especially in a group situation, it can be really intimidating when a tutor first comes in, just because there's so many kids. And, with one-on-one, it can be a little less intimidating because you're only worried about that one student. But, it just takes time and patience, just like anything else. And you get to know the kids, and you start developing relationships with each kid. And, now, Monica, all those kids there, and, and how they work. And that can be a really good experience. Cool. So I'll go on to some of mine. All right. So I have some solutions and best practices here. Like I mentioned before, setting up some, expectations at the beginning. If you're at a place, that, like Monica's at, where the kids are going to be there for a longer period of time, maybe having, I've heard having their students kind of pick their own rules to start. Let's raise our hands. What are some of the kind of things you do in your classroom? Same sort of rules will apply here, but, maybe have their kids kind of pick those rules. Maybe have them put up somewhere. Separating kids by grade can be helpful, especially, if you're at a site with lots of different grade levels and not a lot of tutors. If you have the option to maybe separate them by grade level, you can assign, or ability level, you can assign, a tutor to a table, another tutor to another table, and kind of work from there. And that way, if there are a lot of kids, they can all be kind of working on the same thing. And that way, if you show an example of something to the group, you don't have to go to each individual kid and show that example. You can just do one example for the table of kids. Praising positive behavior is really, really important. If you catch this kid doing something good, it's really important to say, hey, you're sitting there reading quietly. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. Saying thank you to them is really important. And then they'll want to keep doing that positive behavior. Sometimes it's easy to only, and I get into this habit too, but to only be policing the room where, hey, can you quiet down? Hey, can you put that down? Can you do that? But if you start praising the good behavior, all of a sudden the kids will start shifting a little bit, and they'll want to kind of have that behavior because they want to be thanked for doing that kind of stuff. Utilizing behavior charts and reward systems is always good. I know Monica is big on stickers. I think stickers are great.
Stickers are your guide. The stickers are the way to go with any kind of kid. It doesn't matter.
Stickers can be really helpful, especially for the younger ones. You can do a behavior chart, and I put a little picture in the corner there. You can just fill that out and give a prize at the end of a little something, or maybe just a few more stickers. But but yeah,
or
so you can do
one big sticker.
Right, exactly. So
bonus
you can,
points if it's scratch and sniff.
So yeah, you can, if you catch a kid doing something good, you can do a behavior chart, because we did have I did have a situation where a kid was kind of crying, rolling on the floor. All of a sudden, we get him a behavior chart and we get him stickers, and now he's behaving and wanting to exhibit that positive behavior. Another practice I've heard a tip at, if you're at a longer term place, would be setting up folders for each kid and putting their work in folders. If they finish a worksheet, you can just put it in that folder, and that way, if different tutors come, they can kind of see what that kid is working on. Also, sometimes what I try to do is, if an older student, they finish their homework really quickly, I'll maybe ask them to help, a younger student maybe read or something, and then that makes them feel, it's cool. It feels good to kind of teach a younger kid. So I've had them do that before, and they really respond to it. We do it here at the Learning Center a lot, and the kids really enjoy it, especially if maybe a kid is, struggling with subtraction. You can have them teach a younger kid addition, and, it'll help them too to kind of grasp it a little bit better. Talking with parents is good if it's possible. It's not always possible at all the sites, but it is good to have that communication with the parents. At one of my sites, we had a tutor, told the parent that, hey, your kid did great today. You just really did awesome. I was really pleased with, how he or she did. And it just kind of sealed it forever with that student. That student has behaved ever since and been really responsive to the tutor, because that tutor went out of their way to say, hey, your kid was awesome today. So if if the parents come to pick up the kids, if the kid was doing good, say, hey, so-and-so was awesome today. That was great. And the kids will know that, and they'll feel good about it, and they'll want to come back and behave too. So talking with parents is good. Yeah.
I just wanted to add,
Sure.
Kyle and I were talking earlier about, the problem of working in an emergency shelter or a short-term shelter where you have kids, you might have a lot of kids in the same room, but they're cycling out, and it is hard to get to know them for the tutors, and the tutors might not have as much authority really as they need to make the tutoring session productive. Mm-hmm. And so I really like that Kyle said, to set up the expectations at the beginning, have the students, pick the rules. And we also talked about maybe having them read out at the beginning, having the students themselves read out the rules that already exist, once they already exist, and just maybe to ask the students, why are these rules important? And, keeping the rules simple. It doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be a chart of 20 rules, right. But, 3 or 4 rules: respect each other, respect the tutor, use inside voice, don't talk back, or whatever the 3 or 4 rules that you come up with. And then the students will be invested in it, because they're saying, oh yeah, I see why this is important, because if everybody is shouting in outside voices, well, it's going to be so loud in here, nobody's going to be able to concentrate. So I think that is really great. And the rules, again, can be super simple. They just have to be effective and kind of overarching, just be respectful, listen, and, treat people how you want to be treated. And then another thing I wanted to say about, and I don't, please interrupt if you're going to say it later, but how does staff function and factor in? Were you going to talk at all about how and if staff can intervene, and right. when it's appropriate, and those kinds of things? I know it can be a little bit trickier with staff sometimes at situations.
So I think that's tough, because I think it depends on each location that you're at. I mean, for the site that Monica's at, the staff really is involved. The parents kind of drop off the kids in the tutoring room, and then at the end of the hour, the parents will come and pick them up, and they'll take them back. But sometimes there might not be any interaction with staff. The staff is there, but there might not be any real interaction, that they don't come a lot. So it kind of depends on each site. At some other sites, the staff is just right there, where you might want to talk to them or get them involved. I think my advice would be to really try and only use staff when you have to, just because you really want the tutoring session to be something that's tutor run, something that's School on Wheels run. And if you have to go get the bad cop, which is the staff member all the time, it's not something that you want to do. The kids should respond to you guys or to the tutors that are there. So by developing these kinds of good habits, you'll have to go grab staff members less, and I think that's important. But staff is, if staff is there, you should utilize them for the times that it's necessary.
Cool. So I have a couple questions that have come in. Do you guys want to take them now, or do you
Sure.
want to wait? Okay, so one tutor asks, it's a very practical question about multiplication, and what would we recommend if we have two students who are both in need of practice, and would a worksheet or game be better to help out both students? And I'll ask this tutor, are the children young, or what age are they? Are they the same age? That would probably be my first question, because if they were
For multiplication.
Mm-hmm.
Multiplication, well, that's like...
I mean, it's probably like third grade.
Usually third grade is when they start.
So both the same age. Okay. So yeah,
Are they
around
friends?
fourth grade. So fourth grade.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what do you guys think? Worksheets, games?
I think
How would you?
both. I think you can even make it, if they are friends or if they feel some sort of competition with each other, you can make it like a competition game, like see who can do more, or just who can get more answers than the other person or something like that.
They could even quiz each other.
Yeah, they could test
They
each
could,
other.
get some flashcards and quiz each
Right.
other.
Yeah.
I definitely think games are the way to go with teaching math whenever possible, because
Yeah.
it can be, some children love math, and that's wonderful, but a lot of students do struggle with math, and, looking for a game, and I can actually think about this and maybe think of a couple games and send them to you. But I would say probably a game, as long as it's not too disruptive in the tutoring location. If it's in a small room with a lot of students, it might be distracting if it's, if the students get really super excited. And so you might have to tone it down a little bit in that case.
Yeah, I really liked your idea of, the flashcards with the two students, just because I've tried to do flashcards with two students there, and then you'll just have one student that's quicker and answering all the questions, and if that's not helpful to the other student. So yeah, I like the idea of having one student quiz the other student and then switching off. I think that's a great idea. I know games are always fun, but if they aren't available, the mad minute or the mad 2 minutes of doing multiplication, those worksheets, those are really easy to print out. You can always have them do that, and then maybe switch it and have them grade it, have the two grade each other's paper and see how they do, and then work on it. But yeah, I think those are all great ideas.
All right, hopefully that was helpful. And another tutor is asking, Deborah is asking about tips for dealing with older kids. She's working with high school boys who are in a home for disciplinary issues, getting tutoring to start on time, participating, getting more than just a few to participate, and keeping them focused is a challenge. Deborah, definitely. This is one of our, this is definitely the challenge of working in a group home situation with older students. And before we get some other answers from our other panelists, I do want to mention that next month we are going to be having a workshop on mentoring, and that's going to focus on mostly on older students. So you might want to tune back in. I think the date is April 19th. Don't quote me on this because I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we should be advertising it soon, and that will be a really beneficial workshop for anybody that's working with older students. But, I think that one of the most important things for working with older students is establishing that relationship, really making it a mentoring relationship, less worried about getting homework done and focusing on exclusively homework, but really going in there to try to see what these boys, what are their interests, what are their dreams, what are they planning to do after high school? Are they planning to do anything after high school? And just having those kind of like really down to earth conversations with them, I think it can be beneficial. Teenagers are really smart. They know when somebody's not really being sincere, or they know when you're really taking an interest. And so, to be frank and to say, hey, I see that you're just really not interested in tutoring, and So what's going on? Like, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want from our tutoring sessions? And then, they can give some input of, what they want to pursue. And they might not know that you as the tutor could do other stuff with them, that more mentoring activities, college-oriented or job-oriented activities. So they might be really interested in that. If you find out your student is, really into, I don't know, cars or something, you can say, okay, well, let's take a look at, the careers that, you could get into being interested in cars, like mechanics, or you can be selling cars, or, like what way are you going to, are you going to pursue this interest? And that can really have a great effect, I think. But, it is an ongoing, I think that you shouldn't be hard on yourself. I think that tutors sometimes, if you don't have an instant bond with your student, you can feel like you failed or you're not being successful, but that's definitely not true. And, you should just keep at it. And it's a work in progress for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you said, building that rapport, it does take a while, and, just to let everyone know, there's not one right way to do all of it. There's lots of variables. But building that rapport with older students is really important. One of the ideas that Amanda suggested to me a while ago when I was starting a group tutoring site was printing out, an article and getting the kids to read the article. And, that was really helpful to them because it was recent on something that was going on. And you can also, take that idea one step farther, maybe print out a few of the same articles, or maybe two differing point of views, and get them to do maybe a debate or something, or talk about it. So maybe mix things up a bit. It may be harder to get them to do their specific homework, that they have to get done or learn initially. But once they start trusting you, once you get them to open up a little bit, get them talking, it's really not only rewarding, but you'll get them to start doing that work. So you can try and mix it up, try different ideas. It'll just take a little longer, but it's just as rewarding.
Absolutely, and teenagers love to debate things. They, and they have thoughts on things like, it's an election year. Gosh, it's everywhere, right? So they've got to have some thoughts on that. Now, it might be a contentious subject, but it would definitely get them talking. I think as long as you frame the discussion as we have to be respectful of each other, that you can have conversations about real world issues, and I think they really do respond to that. Great. Any other questions for now? Looks like we're good, so we can continue. And again, tutors, please keep typing in your questions.
Okay, I think that's pretty much most of what we have. Just wanted to touch on a few resources we have available.
Yeah. Something that I found to be helpful is to just kind of talk it out with people who have worked with kids a lot, so other tutors. We're part of this giant organization with a lot of great people who've worked with so many different kinds of kids in so many different kinds of situations. So at least there's going to be one person out there who can help you with whatever situation that you may encounter. So you have your coordinators, you have other tutors. I like to talk it out with my roommate who was a after-school program coordinator for a couple years, and we were at USC for an elementary school. And she actually gave me a really great solution for one of my examples, the second one for the fourth grader who doesn't like to read that much. She told me that if he really is all about action, to maybe just choose a paragraph or a passage and then have the kid act it out, and then switch it up. So have the kid read and then you act it out, and then slowly but surely the kid will be more interested in reading. So I like to do that a lot.
That's a great idea. Yeah, so I just want to touch on, more some stuff that School on Wheels has for you. So we have digital tools, and apps are really cool to use. If you're able to use them at your site, maybe download them on the smartphone. We have it all divided. If you go to that link, under volunteer resources, whether, different apps that are, available offline, things like that. So apps are a really key tool. You can use it as a reward. So, if you wanted to break up the session, if your kid keeps getting up, or your students keep getting up or moving around, maybe break it into smaller chunks where let's work on this for 20 minutes, and then let's, use this app as a reward, just like Monica mentioned earlier, and then we'll get back to work maybe. Worksheets are really key. I always keep just a folder of worksheets, for whatever. I know what students I'm going to, be tutoring, what age range they're kind of in, and I'll kind of know what to print out. And And that way, if a kid just doesn't have any homework or maybe it's summertime, you'll just be prepared for that and you'll have something for them just so they can work on something. I think that's important to do, and you can always check out our website for that too under volunteer resources.
Yeah. Worksheets are found to be helpful.
Yes. And that's, I think that's an important thing for every tutor is sometimes I think we forget and, everybody has a busy life and, it can be, we can forget to prepare a little bit for sessions, but if you have kind of a stash of assignments and worksheets and games and all of that you can bring, well, you're never going to be caught off guard. You're always going to have something in your bag of tricks that's going to appeal to the students. And, I think in some group locations, I've heard that the tutoring really is replaced by playing games. And I think sometimes that's because, students might not have homework or, half of the students might not have homework and the other half do. And so that puts tutors in an awkward situation because, they can't just play games with some students and then the other ones are doing homework. So I think everybody ends up playing games. And, games are fun and they're a great way to bond with students, and we definitely recommend them as part of your tutoring. But they shouldn't be the whole tutoring session. So it is really important to find ways to integrate academic work, whether it is homework, real homework, or if it's, one of our academic program activities that we have for the older students, the bus program. But yeah, even just reading, for younger kids, you can do like a group story time, like everybody go around and read, something that's going to engage the whole group. But I think it's really great to include games, just not as the sole focus. But these are all great resources, and checking them out is a really good idea if you are struggling to look for activities to do with your students. And I do have some extra, I have some questions coming in. So I have, let's see. So tutoring in a group session isn't difficult when you have motivated learners. What are some best practices when you have kids who are not focused, have learning issues, and other complications in their lives?
So I guess I'll start. So yeah, that can happen a lot. Our kids are going through a lot. It's tough being a kid. It's especially tough being a kid that's experiencing homelessness. So behavioral issues and motivation can be really tough, and the material level just might be a little too advanced for them at a lot of times. So that can definitely be a struggle. But I think that a lot of the things we mentioned, I think praise is really important. Setting up those behavior charts. I think that once you start doing that, once you set those expectations at the start for the student, like here's what we want to accomplish, maybe get some goals at the beginning too. Here are the rules while you're here. Maybe what are some kind of things you want to work on? Oh, I want to get better at my spelling. Okay, well, while you're here, we'll try and work on that. I think those are really important. And then always, praising when you catch them doing something that they're supposed to be doing, I think is important. And we'll start motivating the student to want to do more. And always praising that they're even trying is important.
Yeah, and depending on what age group your kids are in, but stickers really are a lifesaver. Kids will do anything for a sticker. Yeah,
stickers are good.
Yeah, just any way to kind of praise them, not only like give them a sticker, but just verbally, any little thing helps them.
Great. So how to keep a child's attention from wandering? Should I break the instruction time into 10-minute segments and reward them for a task well done? So just a way to how basically the tutor is just asking how to keep the child focused and how to break down time.
Yeah, I think it's totally appropriate to break things up a little bit. Maybe 20 minutes working on work and then, break it that way.
Or depending on how old the kid is.
Yeah, it depends on how old. But I've had, tutoring situations where, the kid's younger and all of a sudden, halfway through the tutoring session, they're hiding under the table. Yeah. And it's just like, all right, well, you needed a break, so, but the break needed to be a little more structured. It's just the kid got up and took a break themselves, but, like next time what we'll do is we'll do it this way. We'll work on something for 20 minutes and then we'll take a break and let's, if you read a paragraph, I've had a kid like, let's color what we just read about or, something like that. Just to kind of break it up so that they don't feel like their whole hour is like, they have to be at the table sitting down doing work. So that can be really tough for some of our kids to do.
Yeah.
and timing the break too. If you want to get them back on track, using your cell phone as kind of like a, just a timer, put on 3 or 4 minutes, and you can have a dance party, or they can get up and get a glass of water, whatever they need to do in that few minutes. But then once the ringer goes off, well, that's time to get back to work, and it's not your fault; it's the cell phone's fault. So you don't have to feel like you're responsible for it. Any other thoughts on that?
Nope.
That's good. Okay, great. So this tutor wants to know what to do in a situation when there is no leader of the sessions. So she's in a group situation where there are tutors, but nobody who's like a tutor coordinator, nobody that's really leading and organizing the session.
Right.
That actually happened to me, and I just took charge, not like bossing everyone, but just if you see someone that's struggling, you're the first one to go and help them, and you're like, hey, if you're not doing anything, could you help, this kid who really needs help with multiplication or something, just do it yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the first option would be if you're able to and you feel comfortable, just like Monica said, she was able to kind of jump in and be that kind of person, is like ask other tutors, like, hey, it looks like, so-and-so needs some help with math. Do you mind helping them? And then, because sometimes you'll get tutors that might be a little more uncomfortable. They might not know what to do. They might just kind of be hanging out. Like if you want to be that person, to kind of take charge, take a little bit more of a leadership role, that's really awesome. That's really helpful to, that the tutoring at that site, and it helps, us as regional coordinators out a lot. If it's not something you feel comfortable with, that's okay too. Just, let the regional coordinator know what's going on, and like, hey, it's been crazy here. No one's really in charge. Maybe we can find somebody that we know could do that. Or we can at least ask someone there to kind of step up a little bit more, if it doesn't kind of happen organically.
I was working in a region where they were really having a lot of trouble getting the kids to do work because, like I said before, there was just an incident of, the tutors were doing games with the kids, and they had been long-standing tutors, and, some new tutors came in and wanted to kind of do homework and do a more academic program. So they really just got together as a group and had coffee and just kind of hashed it out and kind of came up with a plan. So even if you don't want to become like the sole leader, just working with the other tutors and maybe even just meeting with them before the session, meeting 10 or 15 minutes early and saying, okay, well, what are we going to do, and how we're going to tackle it, like if there's a problem going on in the tutoring location. I think that everybody's has great ideas, and just sharing them, not being afraid to share them, and to even to be the one to suggest it, for sure. So yeah, being proactive is the best way to go. So another question is about problem students or students who seem to lead in the session. So if there's a student whose behavior is standing out and the other students are influenced by that student, what to do to kind of diffuse that situation?
That's a tough one. I mean, I think the stuff we mentioned before can help with that, but with certain kids, I mean, it might be good if there's a space to maybe have that kid kind of like, hey, and kind of pull them aside. I've seen Monica pull aside kids before. Just have a talk with them, like, what's going on with you today? We're trying to get stuff done in here, and kind of just talking it out with them, what's going on. You can maybe having them kind of sit off to the side a little bit and do the work over there until they kind of calm down. And also, and also you always want to praise if you see them doing something good, but if it's a continual problem, maybe it would be important to kind of talk with a parent about it when they get picked up.
Or talk to your coordinators, see what kind of solutions you can.
Great. Awesome. And so a question about time management. So this was actually a question that we got from a tutor a few weeks ago. We answered it partially in the Ask a Tutor blog, but I think it's good for other people to hear. And if you didn't take a look at the Ask a Tutor blog on our website, you can go and just look at our blog, and all of the Ask a Tutor posts are there, and they're really great. They're helpful to to get information about, tutoring problems. But this one is about how to manage time when there are 7 or 8 students who might need homework help, and then, this tutor is working with, multiple students during the session. And is there anything that they can do to kind of prioritize that time, or, to divide it among the students to make it even or fair? Or
yeah, I've seen this happen a lot. I mean, it can be tough when you're at a table and there are a lot of kids, and what I see a lot is, a tutor will kind of stick with one kid and will kind of stick with that kid, and then all the other kids at that table might not be getting any help. So it's kind of important, just like we say in our trainings, that you really want to show the kid, but you don't want to do the kid's work for them a lot of times. So you maybe show them one thing and then kind of maybe move on to the next kid, check in with that kid, and then move on to the next kid. Maybe have them raise their hands too. That's always helpful. And then, once they raise their hands, like, all right, I'll get with you one sec, kind of that kind of thing. But it can be really easy to just, kind of, because they all need help, so it can be easy to kind of stick with one kid, but you really want them to be the ones doing their worksheets, them to be the ones that are taking control of their learning. So show them a couple things, give them an example, work through with them, and then have them try that you try these 5 problems and I'll check back in with you, and then kind of move on to the next student.
Great. Very good. Okay, great. Any other questions from the audience? Anybody else have a story they want to share, or, a difficulty that they're encountering in a group tutoring situation that they'd like to discuss that hasn't been touched on? You can feel free to write that in right now. So we'll just take a minute if anybody has a question. But, I think that these tips have all been really great. I think that one of the things I've learned is that, there are a lot of similarities in group tutoring to one-on-one tutoring. There are some, challenges with getting students motivated. That's going to be kind of universal to all tutoring. But, the group situation does present its own, special set of challenges because you usually have that number of children that's outnumbering the adults, and, just being able to kind of do behavior management and also, work on homework, which you don't really, necessarily have in a one-on-one situation, where it's much easier to kind of bond with your student. So I think these have all been really great tips. I think it was really good. Anybody else? No? Going once? Going twice?
Last call.
All right, last call. If you do end up having another question for any of our panelists, you can just email me. I believe that you all have my email address. If I sent out the reminder for this workshop today, so you can just respond to that email. I'd be happy to forward on your questions or answer them myself. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, taking some time out of your busy schedule to do some additional volunteering, which is participating in this workshop. I think it's a great benefit to your students, and we really do appreciate it. And last, again, take a look for our next workshop, which will be in April, again on that mentoring relationship with older students. All right, wonderful. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much, Kyle and Monica.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. Bye.